Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, we got to talk about the two bullies in the SEC and the Big Ten. I wish I could have done this earlier today. This video will probably get out late, but I was stuck at work today.
Drink it up, big boss! All right, drink it up, gambler.
Yep, as usual. But anyway, let's talk about these guys. Yeah, these are two bully boys, and they want double. They want almost all the money, and they want even more. I'm going to get into this. There's a lot of news about the college football playoff and how they're going to break it up as far as revenue and all of that. And you'll find this very interesting. All right, and this is a story by Ross Dellinger in Yahoo Sports. It talks about the future revenue and what's on the table for the college football playoff. And yeah, the Big Ten and the SEC are flexing their muscles, and they want a lot. It says a deadline looms, an agreement is absent. It says any deal reached will drive a further financial wedge among the major four conferences. Yeah, the Big Ten and the SEC, they're playing for keeps now. I think the kidding around's pretty much over. Look, they're going to push them around, and they're going to say, this is what you're going to get, and you better be glad you got it. Otherwise, we'll just take our ball and go home. Because honestly, the Big Ten and the SEC are getting to the point to where they could break off at some point, especially in the next few years, if the ACC loses a bunch of big teams like Clemson and Florida State, obviously, and several others, to where they're not going to be able to do much. So this would at least lock them in to where they're not going to lose any money, because when you see the deal, you'll see they're not losing any revenue, but they're not participating in all the increases. It says, while the Power Two, which is obviously the Big Ten and the SEC, separated themselves long ago through increased revenue streams. Of course, they're talking about the contracts they've got with ESPN, Fox, and all of that. They're getting way more money than the ACC or Big 12. It's not even close. And the Pac-12 is gone. They're goodbye. So that money is now available as well, and they'll be scooping that up. It says, using an uneven revenue distribution, a tangible separation is forming between college football's haves and have-nots. It says a revenue distribution model has surfaced, and we're going to get into that. It says in the past structure, the five major conferences, they split evenly 80%, which is about 16% each of the $460 million bucks. Now the Big Ten and SEC, they want 58%. So that means the Big Ten and SEC will go from 16% to 29%. And I'll show you the dollar amount of that in a chart I put together. I'll show you that here in a minute. And the ACC and the Big 12, they're going to get 31%, which is actually about the same as they used to get. They used to get 16%, so it's about the same. The remaining amount, which is 10%, will go to the group of five teams and Notre Dame, because Notre Dame, as you know, can't join a conference because they're very special, and they can't be part of a conference.
Sacrifices have to be made, mister.
It says the Power Two will earn around a combined $760 million, whereas the ACC and Big 12 will earn about $440 million, and that leaves $115 million for the group of five and Notre Dame. It's a $1.3 billion annual deal, so there's tons of money. And here's a chart that I put together that'll let you know what each team will get. This kind of breaks it down. The SEC, even though they're going to get the same amount of money as the Big Ten, they get more money per team because there's less teams in the SEC. So $23 million a team for the college football playoff, $21 million for the Big Ten participants. The ACC will get 13.7, and the Big 12 will get 12.3. So as you can see, they're going to get about double the amount of money as ACC and Big 12. And of course, they're already getting double the amount of money because of the contracts they've got with the different companies that they've cut deals with, ESPN, Fox Sports, and all that. So the haves are getting more, and the have-nots are pretty much staying stable where they are. It says the contract is expected to include a definitive look-in provision in 2028. The look-in can be triggered before that date from any conference realignment. So we're going to have a lot more realignment. Just go ahead and know that. As a matter of fact, who knows what we're going to have? We know the Big Ten will be there. We know the SEC is going to be there. Anything else? Big 12 will probably be there. I think they've solidified their deal. But the ACC, it's going to be a little tricky. There may be several teams swap in and out of the ACC and then join the SEC and Big Ten. I know there's a lot of talk about FSU joining the SEC. You've got Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia, NC State, Virginia Tech, Miami. All of those teams would probably leave the ACC if the option was available to them. We'll find that out with the FSU lawsuit with the ACC. That is really going to affect the entire college scene. That lawsuit is big. And whether or not they do a settlement or whether they, win or lose the lawsuit will have a lot to do with that. But that's going to get way uglier as we go further down the path, especially as they go into discovery on that, because there's a lot of talk that there's a lot of things in that deal that were a little bit questionable. There's also a big shakeup in the playoff format because, as you know, they've been talking about moving from a 12-team to a 14-team already, even though we haven't even had a 12-team playoff yet. Really, that's only for 2 years. So we need to know what we're going to be doing in 2026. Well, they want to do a 14-team. And if you'll remember, they wanted to do the top two SEC Big 10 get an automatic bye, and then they break it down from there with 3 to the SEC, 3 to the Big 10, 2 and 2, and then 1 to Group of 5, and then the remainders. And that was basically a 3-3-2-2-1 plus 3 model, 3 at large. Now they're talking about a 2-2-1-1-1 plus 7. I actually would prefer that, and I'll tell you why. If you've got 3 and 3 in the SEC and Big 10, and then you do 2 in the ACC, 2 in the Big 12, you could easily have somebody that finished 3rd in the SEC or 2nd in the Big 12, for example, or whatever, that didn't even finish in the top 15. They're automatic qualifiers. Then you might have a team that's 10th in the country. They get kicked out. And that would have happened this year. As a matter of fact, Ole Miss wouldn't have got in, nor would have Missouri. So I think this might be a much fairer model in order to get the best teams in, because the top 2 SEC and the top 2 Big 10 teams would qualify anyway. The top ACC club would, the top Big 12 probably would, the top Group of 5, that's a gift, most likely. Then you've got 7 at large based on what they're ranked. I think that'll play out a lot better because I heard a lot of grumbling about that 3-3-2-2 business, especially once they actually put it into this year and they saw how many really good teams would have got creeked. And that would have been awful. Honestly, Ole Miss and Missouri both deserved to be in the playoff had it been 12 teams. If they got creeked, I can tell you the SEC would not be happy with that.
I'm in a glass case of emotion.
So I think this makes way more sense. So everything's in flux right now. The Big 10, the SEC, they are flexing their muscles, and they're making offers to the Big 12 and the ACC that they may not like.
I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse.
Yeah, making them an offer they can't refuse. It's going to get real dicey. I don't think the SEC and Big 10 care anymore. I think they're just like, look, we're the 800-pound gorilla. We're going to push you around, and if you don't like it, we'll just leave. You don't even have to be part of this. And see what happens. See what the cable companies and ESPN and Fox Sports all want to do. Let me assure you, they're going to go running after the Big 10 and the SEC. So, look, ACC and Big 12, they're just going to take what's there. At least they're not losing money. They'll get the same amount of money they've always gotten pretty much. But they aren't going to be getting the huge money. So I find this incredibly interesting, and it's going to happen fairly soon. This is the type of thing that has to be done in the next several weeks and months, because if it's not done, you're not going to be able to get everything worked out and planned with all the different bowl games. And here, the ACC and Big 12 are asking, the format aside, the money split alone is causing anxiety in both the ACC and Big 12, with some of the administrators asking a vexing question. It said, would the Power 2 really leave if we say no? I think they would. I really do. And they're probably going to leave at some point anyway, whether you like it or not. It's going to wind up being a league that's probably 2 conferences that will have the top 50 or 60 teams in it. And they're going to cut their own deal, take all the money. And then what will probably happen is the other 2 conferences plus the Group of 5 will have their own championship. That's what I see happening. I see all the best teams going to those 2 conferences where all the big money is, play for the national title there, and then we're probably going to have a G League or a second step down where they play against their own level of competition, and they'll have a national championship. That's probably where this is headed. And it's probably more fair that way for the teams that are in that second league, because it's going to be really hard for them to compete against teams that are chock full of 5 stars and 4 stars, and they're all 2 and 3 stars. It's going to get tricky. We're seeing a lot of movement in a very short period of time. Normally, stuff like this takes decades. We're going to see this in a small number of years. And you got to keep your eye on it because it's happening quick. And if you like this content and you want to continue to get these updates, just be sure to hit this button right over here. It's the subscribe button. It'll help you get my videos. And right over here's the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.